All right. So methods. You've been using methods since the very first day of class. This is a method. This is a method. So anything with these parentheses at the end of it is going to be a method. In C#, everything is within a class. So that's what this is, this class, main class. This is the main method. So pretty much what that means is as soon as you hit run or compile, this method here is going to be called one time. That's why it does, whenever you start it, it does whatever you type in here. And it has all these words. We're going to be looking at the public and void. So public means that if you had another class besides main class, which we'll learn how to do when we get into Unity, because you're going to have all kinds of classes and scripts, this lets this method talk to another class, another file, another script. If it's private, which is the other option, so you wouldn't write private, you would just leave it blank. So like if I just wrote this, that would just be a private method. And that can only talk to itself. It can only be used within the class. Static, not anything we'll ever use. That's like pretty much just for Replit. Don't even worry about that. But when you create a method in Replit, you're gonna have to put this in Unity, and most every other time forever you won't. So I won't even get into it. Void means it's just gonna do what you tell it to do, pretty much. We'll get into other keywords for that in a bit, but for now, just think of void as meaning it's going to copy paste whatever code is in there, wherever you call it. So let's talk about making our own method. I always want to start with public static in Replit, just in general. Always make it this. When we get into Unity, we'll talk about different ways to do this part, but for now, it's too much to get into. So just public static, and then I want to create a void type function, and I'm going to call it hello world. And it's going to look just like this. So it's going to be within the main class brackets, but outside of the main method. Okay, so outside of this, so it's the first time you're allowed to actually write outside of one of those brackets. Exciting stuff. So we've called it hello world. The naming convention for methods is going to be capitalize the first letter and then the first letter of every word after it. Different than methods, variables, where you don't capitalize the first letter. It'll still work if you don't. Again, this is just like a variable. You can call it whatever you want. But naming convention says make it capital. If you go to a job, an interview, and you don't do that, they'll definitely take some points off your interview for sure. So public static void hello world. This is our first little method, and all I want is for it to say console.writeLine hello. Oh my gosh. Hello world. And I'm going to delete this one up here. I don't want that one. So at the moment, assuming you have all this, if you hit run, what's going to happen? Anybody? Shout out and answer. Do you think this is going to print anything? Raise your hand. Okay. Why? Because what? the wrong order. Like this should be above main. Let's see what happens. It didn't print anything out because we never called this method. So calling a method just means like typing its name, telling it it needs to do its thing. A method, maybe if you've taken another CS class, maybe you've heard it called a function. It's just a little block of code that does one thing, its own method, its own function. But we haven't told it to do its task yet. So all we have to do is say hello world. We just type its name with the parentheses, semicolon. Just like if you were using console.writeLine or console.readLine or convert.toInt32. Those are all methods. We've been using them. This is just now we've made our own method. And this method just prints hello world. That's all it does. So I hit run, and now it prints hello world. Sweet. Kind of redundant because we could have just put this here, but it just gives you a little bit of an idea of what we can do here. And you can have as many methods as you want. So let's just add another one. I don't know. What do we want this one to say? What I do? Oh yeah. Wear your mask. You don't have to copy this line. You can make your own method. You don't have to do exactly what I'm writing. So all right. I'm gonna hit run, and it didn't print it out. Why not? Because I need to call it. Perfect. And I call it just by typing its name, a couple of parentheses, boom. So what it's basically doing, if it's a void function, is taking that code right here and copy pasting it wherever I type this. And I can type this as many times as I want. I can call it wherever I want in my program, however many times I feel like calling it. So a use that the last class figured out was like just doing it like this, is instead of using goto in your choose your own adventure, you could just have a death method. Where it just prints out that you died. So instead of saying like go to here and then having an if statement to check if you actually died or not, you can just say death. So this is a little bit easier part of methods. Yeah.
So why would I want to use this over a go to?
Way less work, and I can just have, you can just have, I mean, it's the same thing. Right now, there is. I mean, there's so much more functionality with this. And from now on, I would never use a goto ever again. because that would like, it takes you out of the if statement or for loop. And most of the times you don't actually really want to do that. But in our little hacks for games, they will. We will probably remake that choose your own adventure with loops and methods. Now that we talk about methods and we finished up loops, we can do pretty much anything. Make just about any kind of game you want in this console window. Okay, so that's just writing stuff. Let's say I wanted to have a method where where it's just, I'm gonna ask the user to type in their name, and then I'm just gonna print it out. So methods, here's another reason why you wouldn't use a goto. So let's say I have name written like a whole bunch of times. Like I want to, like there's a bunch of different times I want to ask the user to type in their name or something. Maybe not name specifically, but maybe I'm using the same kind of code a bunch. And I want to make a change. Like I want to ask specifically for their last name instead of just their whole name. So instead of making that change 3 times, I can just change it once in here. Not that this changes anything, but now I would just type my last name in. So let's talk about how we can use these to change some variables. I'm going to make a int x. Yeah. Okay, we'll talk about that. All right, so I'm making a method called add 10. And what I want to do is take some number that I type in, add 10 to it, and print it out. But how do I get this value, this x, into a different method? So just like for loops, the I, or whatever you call your increment, this x only lives in here. You can't get it in here. You can't say, like if I wanted to write out x here and even call it add 10. it's kind of jumbled up, but it says the name X does not exist in the current context because X doesn't exist in this method. It only exists in main. So how can I get this value into here? And you've done this before, even right now. So this, I can't really do both, but so this right here, that's two methods. This one reads a string. This convert.toInt32 takes that string from a different method, puts it into this method, and then gives you a value back, an integer. So it takes a string, comes in through here, comes out through here. You can use it, and then we send it back. So let's talk about how we can do that. And it's pretty easy. So if I am adding 10 to an integer, let's just say we're doing an integer. In my parentheses here, I would just say I'm expecting an integer, and then I'll just give it whatever name. And the names don't need to match. So like this A and this X doesn't have to be the same. It's just going to be whatever you call it in here. This is where things start getting a little bit confusing for the first time. So just if I'm going too fast or you're confused or you have a question, please let me know so I can break it down a little further. So we have X, okay? We're going to read in whatever the user types in for X. And then for add 10, I'm just going to put X here, exactly like I put console.readline in that parentheses. It's the same concept. So this would go into the, I can't really do that because they can't see it. So this console.readline is going into convert.toInt32, just like this X is going into add 10. Now within add 10, X isn't called X anymore. Now it's called A. We're setting this variable A equal to X. Basically at the start, don't put this, but at the start, it's basically saying A equals X at the start. We can call this Bullaboo if we want to. It doesn't matter. Call it whatever you want. This value, like the value in X, is going into this variable. So now if we print that, this should type out 10, and it does. And if I wanted to add 10 to it, I would say plus 10. Plus equals 10. So now we've taken our X, we've passed it into our variable, or sorry, our method. Call this whatever you want. I might go back to A. I normally do small, like letters or something for these. We're adding 10 to it, and then we're printing it out. But something isn't quite right. What is the value of X right here after we've done this, after we printed it out? What is the value of X? Is it 10 or is it 20? If you think it's 10, raise your hand. High. Like actually raise your hand. If you think it's 20, raise your hand. If you didn't raise your hand, raise your hand. Okay. Cool. So let's find out. If I type in 10, we print out A, and then we print out X. X is 10. So we never actually changed the value of X. So that's the deal with void functions. They're not going to change anything outside of themselves. Their whole life is just in here, and when it's over, it's over. X never actually gets changed. But what we want to do, if you actually want to change it, which is that what we want to do next? Yeah, I guess we can. So if we wanted to change x's value using this method, we would change this void to an int. So now that you've done this, you need there's a couple other things you need to do. But now the method knows it's no longer void. It's no longer just a copy paste method. Now it's expecting to return something back to the user. So we give it something. We're giving it an A, or X in this case, and it needs to give something back. I need something back from it. If you ever have a method that isn't a void, it expects a return. That just means that's the thing that it's going to return. And we want to return A plus 10. So whatever value we gave it, plus 10, send it back. So this is just a really fancy way of just saying add 10 to X. So let's see if that changed anything. X is still 10. Why is X still 10? We gave it back. We have 10 here, or rather 20. X plus 10. What do we need to add to change our X? It's simpler than you think, and you've done it before. Many times. You've done it on line 7 even. So how do we get that value, that 20 value, into X? Assuming X was 10. So I'm basically wanting to do this. That's more or less what I want. This is a really fancy way of just doing. That's it. I don't know why. I don't know. But yeah, just X equals add 10 or X plus 10. They're the same thing. They're interchangeable because that's all this method does. So we're just setting X equal to, we're passing in X, we're adding 10 to it, bringing it back. So now X is whatever X was plus 10. Oh, it doesn't like this. And now X is actually 20. Good stuff. How do I add two different numbers together? So I've got my two variables, my two integers I'm going to type in, and I've got my method here, but I want to put two numbers into it. So I can just put the two numbers I want to add together, return them, and then print it out. Take a moment, write this. If you don't have this written yet, write it out. Try to just type some stuff. Try to figure it out. Take some time. It's okay to be wrong. You're gonna be wrong. That's good. no one has ever just gone through a programming class and never been wrong. You guys at home, you do it too. Really explain how to make two. So if you want to pass two variables into a method, comma, after the first one, give the second one a name. And if you're wanting to call it, you'll put add the first variable, comma, the second variable. So that'll pass both those values in. This is going to be a really annoying video to edit. I want to see you guys try to do this. Wait, don't actually don't. This is the same thing as saying this. Which is the same thing as saying that. Wait, no. You still need to remember like the equals to that value. Because they're going to be over this.
Hold on, see.
To this. To add. Yep. And then you gotta put all this, like literally this right there. It's just like how this convert duck to int is a number just hanging there until you put it into x. This is just a number hanging there. Right, wherever this is hanging until you put it somewhere. All right. So just like before, I'm just going to set answer equal to whatever is in this. And instead of a plus 10, I want to add them together. So I'm just going to add a plus b. And really, I guess you don't need an answer variable. You can just slap this in here. Cool, good stuff. So far, that's going to get you through about 3 or 4 of these assignments, probably 4. To the last one, kind of debating if I really want to go into it. I will, because I'm nice. All right. So just like how there's an int return type, there's string, float, and I want to talk about bool. Bool is one you'll use a lot for gaming, and not for gaming, but for game development. It's a pretty important one because you're going to have a lot of booleans on a player character. You're going to check if he's attacking, yes or no, or true or false. Is he dead, true or false? Is he jumping, true or false? Is he crouching, true or false? You always need to know what state he's in, whatever character you're in. Same thing with enemies. Like if you're attacking, you don't want to be able to roll at the same time. Maybe you don't. maybe you don't want to jump at the same time. So to your jump method, you want to check, is he attacking or not? And if he is, you can't jump. If he's not, you're allowed to jump. Or maybe there's some other kind of a check. So this kind of a Boolean return value is going to be a very, very, very useful one. So we'll just talk about it a little bit. And we will make one that checks if a number is even or not. And we only need one number. Is even x. So we want to see if x is even. Does anyone have any idea how to check if a number is even or not? You probably don't. I don't think, did I ever talk about what this symbol means right here? The percent sign. Okay. So look it up right now. Google that. Type that symbol, percent sign, in programming. I'll do it too. If one of the best lessons you can learn, and really the only thing I really want you to get out of this class, is how to figure out an answer to your problem. So I don't know what a percent sign does in programming, so I'm going to type that in. Let's check this out. Does this have anything in it? Okay, so it looks like it's an operator. And this gives the remainder of an integer division. Who remembers long division from like 3rd grade? So remember when you're doing long division and you're like, you've got whatever, 5 divided by 4. How many times does 4 go into 5? Once, okay? Now 5 minus 4 is 1. What's the remainder? Just 1. Just 1. So if you have, let's do 4 divided by 3. Get you what? What is the remainder on that? So it's going to say 1 on there, and then you're going to do 4. I wish I had like a board that they could see. You do 4 minus 3, which is 1, so the remainder is 1. What about 4 divided by 4? 0. There is no remainder. 4 goes into 4 cleanly. What about 5 divided by 3? Is 2. It's 2. Because 3 goes into 5 one time. Then you do 5 minus 3. There's a remainder of 2. So what this modulus operator does, the percent sign, it gives you that remainder. So it's not dividing 5 by 3. It's the remainder of the division of 5 by 3, which is 2. So 5 mod 3 would give you 2, not some decimal number. Who can tell me what 5 mod 2 would be? Yes. So remainder of 1. Because I'm not dividing anything. I'm saying, how many times can 2 go into 5? Twice. What's the remainder of 5 minus 4? 1. So it gives you the answer of 1. What about 6 mod 2? What about 7 mod 2? What about 8 mod 2? 0. What about 9? Is anybody seeing a pattern? Okay, so some number, mod 2, is either going to give you 1 or 0. So either 2 can go into it perfectly, or it can't. So an odd number would give you a remainder of 1, and an even number would give you a remainder of 0. So all we want to do is say if A mod 2 is 0, so if 2 cleanly goes into this, whatever A is, we want to return true. We're saying, yes, it is even. This is a Boolean method, so it needs a true false return. We're saying, yes, it's true. Else, I don't care what else it is. If it's not, if it's not 0, what is it? Yeah, or anything. I don't care what else it is. It's definitely not even though. So we're just going to say false. And yeah, it would be 1. There's only one other outcome. So this is, well, I'm going to get rid of these because that just looks kind of ugly. So here's an example of a method with 2 different return statements. So it can either return true or it can either return false. We don't know. It depends on whatever this if statement is. So is even with x is like just a hanging value that is either true or false. What do we want to do with it? It either is even is true or is even is false. And it's just hanging there, doing nothing. But it's there. We can grab it. What do we want to do with it? Sure, let's compare it. So so really we don't need it there. We just put it here. So if even is even of x, if whatever we type in is even, if that's true, okay, if this is true, what must that mean? That it's even. And else, it's going to be odd. I'm going to type in some number. Doesn't matter what. 12 is even. We just proved it. Tell that to your math teacher. Not really. And we can use this method now wherever we want, whenever we want. It doesn't matter. You can slap this whole thing in a for loop if you wanted to. I'll do a while loop because I don't want to write that much. While true. Let's put it here. Now I can type a whole bunch of numbers in. I'll type 12. Maybe I'll type 11. How about 203? 11,709. That's odd. Cool. There's all kinds of methods you can make. If this were an iceberg, and we're talking about how much we've covered, if there was one piece of snow that fell to the very top of an iceberg, we haven't even covered that much yet. There's so much more to do, but I hope you can at least see the possibilities through methods. They make your life a lot easier. And if I wanted to change how this works, instead of like writing whatever, checking, like writing this a whole bunch of times everywhere, I could just change it once here. Whatever. Okay, so that's going to cover all of the assignments so far. We'll spend a long time on methods because again, this is the most important thing that we'll cover. And possibly, I don't know. Do y'all think you'll get this? Does that make kind of sense? We'll see when you start it, but yeah.
I keep getting this error on, it says on the line that says public static pool, it's says that pool is an unexpected symbol.
Are you outside of the main method, but inside the class?
I think I am. Let me double check.
Okay. Like you should be able to click this minimize on main and still see your method.
Yeah, it turns it over here.
Okay, cool. Before we go, I do want to say, stop being discouraged when you don't get something right away. Nobody gets anything right in programming right away. Don't beat yourself up if you don't have like stuff memorized. I definitely don't, and there's no reason to with the internet existing. Everything I teach you, like if you're confused about some part of methods, Google C# methods, and I guarantee you there will be thousands of videos and articles explaining how to use them in the specific way that you want. Like no matter what you guys are doing, someone has already done that and done it again. There's been generations of people having the same problems back to the 80s, for sure, at least. When I was in your shoes, I Googled everything. But I started in college, and in college, they don't help you like I do. They definitely don't walk around and say, oh, yeah, you missed a semicolon there. No, they'll kick you out of the building if you ask for help for that. But I won't. Because I know this stuff is scary. But it's not. You can all do it. Promise. So don't be discouraged to look something up. I recommend it. For sure. And post in Discord if you're having trouble. Everyone will help you.